Welcome, dear friends, to Cardiac Radio at 11 p.m., nourishing our souls with the laws of love, a book that was psychographed between 1962 and 1963 by two mediums, Chico, Xavier, and Waldo Vieira, and the spirit author is Emmanuel, a true phenomenon to be studied by science one day. We're going to get there. For now, we know the value of this work. And Emmanuel wrote this book as an educational booklet to let you and I know of the background of sufferings, the spiritist understanding on sufferings, which is inevitable. And that's why he titled Laws of Love, because he says divine justice takes care of us. God created us. Let's think together. God created you, created me. We didn't ask for it. So it must be very good because God knows more than we do. And the beauty of it all is that we come to know through Emmanuel that God loves us so much that in the freedom he gives us to choose, there's always a way out, meaning a way back to harmony. So when we make a mistake, we need to surrender to God, humble ourselves, and say, if you love me and you allowed me to make choices and I chose this pathway that is not healthy, please help me realign myself. In my freedom, I misused my time, my abilities, my talents. I abused them, but now I no longer want to be like this. It's like the parable of the prodigal son. Aren't we the prodigal children of God? Living the high life, fun all the way, just to realize one day that the real fun is to do the good and the good to everyone, not only to ourselves selfishly. Today, we're going to understand the power of regenerative diseases, illnesses. Did you know that this is possible? Actually, that's what happens. When we go to the beginning of this chapter one, spiritual causes of illnesses, we come to know that when we make a mistake, we generate a lesion in our mental body that is going to be reflected as a like a wound, a nodule of disturbance, as André Luiz says also in the book Evolution into Worlds, chapter 19, item, chapter 19, part 2 of the book Evolution into Worlds, goes hand in hand with Emmanuel in this book, and it explains to us that these nodules, these lesions will only heal when we either two choices choose the good and go through the pathway of being anew, like Saul of Tarsus, the Apostle Paul, or second choice, we are predisposing ourselves to illnesses that will be the pathway through which these nodule of disturbances in our spiritual body will be expunged. So that's why today we begin this program with question 6 in this book, Laws of Love, chapter 1. We're going to talk about question 6, 7, 8, and 9. Why? Because they belong to the same cluster. Emmanuel was asked the following question that probably you have as well, and I do too. The people who were intellectuals and they didn't multiply the treasures of their soul, what do they ask to go through in order to be regenerated? Remember, We talked about regeneration. This is the third time in a row that we reinforce that we are here to begin anew, to be anew, to generate again in harmony. Regenerate. So we need to learn the new. Educate ourselves, acquiring new habits. So, what is the answer? People who are intellectuals and misuse their intelligence. Answer, Emmanuel says that intellectuals who are good in their thinking, when they misuse this asset of the spirit, they beg for brain problems. Avoid making us refrain from incurring in the same tendencies of intellectual imbalance. We look at the immortal line. We have a ruler in our hand, figuratively representing the beginning of our creation as spirits and the never ending, the immortality. We are here at some point in this timeline of immortality. And in this point, we asked, because we misused our intellectual abilities, to have brain issues, nervous issues, brain issues, as a blessing in disguise, blocking us from incurring again. We're seeing several illnesses nowadays, several. And we're seeing strong cases of autism. We're not talking about the light cases, but strong ones. When it makes very hard for people to be intellectually engaged. And the parents say, they're very intelligent, yeah, but we didn't use it right. We don't want to point fingers, but we need to recognize that if we misuse it, we need to be re-educated. The spirit is fully aware of what's happening. That's why sometimes they show their frustrations. They may not elaborate it well, but the spirit perceives, the immortal spirit. All these different cases of mental impairment will also be blessings, refraining or blocking us from incurring in greater mistakes. I know it is hard to go through, but we need to team up as a society, support the parents, help the educators who need to take care of the children with special needs. The Spiritist view is phenomenal. In Brazil, there is a modeling organization named Casas André Luiz. It's not the only one, but it's one of the oldest ones in the world. And they have the Spiritist approach when taking care of children, teenagers, and adults of special needs. Severe cases that the parents cannot handle, they take care of them. So when you are in Brazil listening to the radio Boa Nova, Good News Radio in Brazil, or the TV, the Spiritist TV channel Mundo Maior, you are helping. You will be able to help that organization. This is just to give us an example. There are many other organizations in Brazil that have the Spiritist approach to take care of those who have mental impairment, disabilities. Now we understand. We don't know. It's a case by case. We don't know people. We're just seeing that these illnesses have a blessing in themselves. Not that we want them, but when they happen, the whole family can regenerate. It's not only that spirit that goes through it, but the whole family. What about artists? This is question 7. What people asked Emmanuel, what are the measures of rehabilitation that artists beg for when they corrupted their intelligence? And we're seeing nowadays artists corrupting not only their intelligence, but a whole generation with their music, with their arts, in the name of freedom, in the name of I do whatever I want. One day we realize that the way I want is not the way it's supposed to be, that God wants us to do. So the answer by Emmanuel is the following: those artists who intoxicated other people's sensibility with the abuses of their own addictions, they will implore, beg for diseases, illnesses, mutilations that will make them incapable to incur in new guilt. But then you go to the book Memoirs of a Suicide and you realize that when parents, they say they want a child, they don't realize that they may be having a child that needs to go through this. That's why we tell parents to wish you have a baby. It's not like a new mini me. People may say, oh, he looks like you, she looks like you. That's besides the point, because our children are not our children. We're tutoring them. No matter how much we love them, they are children of God. And we're here to help them. It's not the way society thinks. That's the way we understand here. So I know many couples who want to have children, but they don't. You know why? As Mentor Joseph said once, because the father, usually the father, knows that this child is going to be born with disability and they don't want to accept it. And then the couple goes through the difficulties of being pregnant after miscarriages because we don't want to surrender to God's designs. Food for thought. And if we are artists, our influence over others needs to be responsibly measured. Then what about people who also influence people, speakers? People who use their word negatively. What do they ask when they reincarnate so they can be regenerated? You know the answer? Emmanuel says, workers of the word, when we misuse it to slander or to hurt people, we ask for deficiency in our vocal apparatus, in our auditory system, so we can be careful in incurring the same mistake. I see people who don't understand about this, and they have a child who is impaired in some way. And in the name of equality, etc., they push that child back into fame without noticing. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly the pathway they shouldn't go now. We see parents who, without noticing, push their children. Oh, you're going to be a famous NBA player, a famous singer. These parents are so naive, egotistic, that they barely know the reason why these children were reincarnated. And often, that's not the plan. So we need to think, and that's why when a child is born, this child has parents, grandparents, and a whole lot of siblings and family, a whole family constellation that is also responsible for the misuse of that life, because nobody makes a mistake alone. I remember the Spirit side of Baltimore many years ago, more than 20 years ago, 22, 23 years ago, when we were visiting children who were disabled, who had myasthenias gravis. They had this neurodegenerative muscular condition, and we were helping the parents. And we remember talking to the parents who could understand the Spiritist view. They could more easily navigate it. But those who didn't understand it often, especially the fathers, often they break apart, they abandon the family. I've seen cases after cases. The fathers give up when even the mothers sometimes give up. So we need to think what we can do to help, especially raising awareness on the true meaning of parenting and the true meaning of a reincarnation. We don't reincarnate for a vacation. Yes, these are the words of a renowned British spiritist pioneer, Janet Duncan. She said, reincarnation is not vacation, but we think it is, right? So we need to be responsible and teach our children your words are valuable. What you say, measure your words. So that's why we love Don Miguel Ruiz when he says something that we're learning ourselves, but we need to keep in mind something that is so difficult. But we need to practice. We fall when we stand up and we try again until we make it. Being impeccable with your words. We are not there yet. We speak words we didn't want to speak. We use our words in ways that we didn't want to. But when we influence with our words in a family group, community, social media, let us notice that there is action and reaction always. And as Emmanuel says, issues of the vocal cord and of hearing. Let us mark it down, not to be afraid, but to understand that these are illnesses that will cleanse the distorted nuclei in the spiritual body, as André Luiz says, expunging those disturbances away. What about those who misused their sexual faculty, their sexual abilities, making grave mistakes? What do they ask for themselves in another life? Emmanuel answers, those individuals who are gifted with organic physical harmony, but threw it away in crazy passions, breaking people's hearts, fomenting tragedies, they supplicate for illnesses and inhibitions in their reproductive areas. So, in this humbling scenario, they will be able to contain themselves in their inferior impulses. Impotency may humble somebody. When women say, oh, I feel pain when I have sex. Oh, I feel guilty, which is majority of people in this world. They have some issue. These are primal things on the earth. Who can cast a stone? But now instead of being rebellious and feeling like, oh, I'm a bad person, you say, no, I'm healing. Through this inhibition, through this constriction, I am healing. Tell yourself, I am healing through this illness. Because when we accept the lesson, says Louise Hay in her book, I can heal my life. She says, don't shoo away the disease, learn with it. It's hard, but it's needed. We say, I am healing. I know deep inside there's a part of us that feels insecure, that feels sad, that feels sometimes even angry. Because there's a grieving component in that. We feel like we are at loss. But deeply, we need to reframe it and see, I'm healing. Through this illness, I am healing. I am visualize your spiritual body, dissolving those knots of disturbance. Let us visualize these knots in our perispirit being dissolved. But we don't need to surrender to illness. That's simply no. That's not the case. We're just understanding it. And though we go through these illnesses, restrictions, and constrictions, we still focus on the good and the good to others. That's the only pathway. We're not going to be home feeling sad and sorry about ourselves or in a monastery visualizing, meditating. No, we're going to look at the people who suffer more than us and we're going to reach out to them relentlessly. That's what the good spirits say. The good must be done without stop. We're sick, but we're thinking of people who are even more than we are, and we're reaching out. It's revolutionary. Do you agree? That's why we need a lot of good inside of our minds. Feeling, I am a child of God. Let us close this understanding of the laws of love by feeling, I am a child of God. I am a child of God. I reincarnated to learn to do good. Reincarnation, the path of progress. And let us, every time we feel unsettled, insecure, put your hand in your heart, embrace yourself and say, everything shall pass. This is a blessing in my life. This is healing me. This restriction, this constriction, this apparent impediment, it's so temporary. One day I'll be free, but really free from these tendencies of the past. And I will no longer incur in those mistakes. So I want to learn the new. Feel the warmth of your hand on your heart. It feels so good. When you tell yourself, everything is fine, sadness is gone, and happiness arrives. You know when, right? It's a Christ consciousness. It's a child song that we sing, but it's so good for us. We're talking about Jesus is passing by with the good news. He's bringing us the good news. Spiritism is bringing us the laws of love. Nobody comes and says, you'll be punished. You're going to be born without a leg, without. No, everything is very loving, and we actually ask for it. And even worse, we're given only what we can handle. So we need to feel this good news. The good news. The good news is passing by. The good news is passing by. And when it comes, everything is fine. Sadness is gone and happiness arrives. These are regenerative illnesses. Which one is not? All of them are at the end of the day. It's a new way of feeling, a new way of being. The day we understand it, we healed. So let us move to the healing in the next 24 hours. Let us do this exercise. Put our hands in our hearts during the day as often as you can and say, I am healing as I breathe. I am healing as I breathe. As I breathe in, I am healing. Breathing out, the healing solidifies in me. I heal as I breathe. And you feel the warmth in your heart. You bringing onto you the certainty that everything is well because we are under the laws of love. Thank you, friends, for being here with us at Cardiac Radio once again. We wish you many blessings. Let us feel this love and feel the healing. We are marching towards greater harmony as we speak. Thank you, friends.